Hello and welcome to the Cloud PBX administrative training. Today I'm going to show you how to log into the portal as an administrator and go through the various features and functions. It is highly suggested that you use Chrome for a web browser. While other ones do work, we have found that Chrome works the best. And if you are having difficulties, we will tell you to download Chrome and use Chrome. So just use it from the beginning and everything will be fine. All right, so after you open Chrome, you'll go to your address bar, type in cloudpbx.askunitel.com, which will bring you to this login screen. Enter your username and password that we provided to you. In this case, I'm using admin@askunitel.com. And if you forgot your password, you can certainly click on there. I'm going to click on Sign In, which will bring me to the home screen. At this home screen, you'll see there's 6 tabs up at the top. But I want to start by showing you all the way up the top. We're logged in as the system administrator. And you can click on this and it will take you to the UC client part of it. So you do have access to this that all users have access to. But I just wanted to point that out in case you would inadvertently get here. So I'm going to go ahead and close the UC client. It just opens another window anyhow, so you can just close the window. But what I really want to show you, I'm not going to talk about profile or settings because there are shortcuts that get you to other areas and there's really nothing you need or should change in there. But I want to show you the help screen. Much of what we're going to talk about today is in the services tab, which is basically the phone system, the phone service is. But it will show you about whatever. If you're in the auto attendance screen and you're programming auto attendance, we'll tell you how to create one, how to upload files, how to make changes to it, and the different buttons if the user presses 0, 1, 2, or 3, things like that. So there's lots of great information here that after you go through this training, you can go back and revert to if you have questions about any specific features. So currently, it brings you back to the home screen. It's the first thing it presents you to. And you have different invoices. You can certainly click on here and get to the invoice, which will take you to the accounting tab. I'll show you in a minute. And it has some common tasks like to go directly to your extensions, your telephone numbers, or if you want to make a payment. The first two will take you to the services tab. The latter will take you to the accounting tab. So they're just shortcuts that we're going to get to eventually anyhow. So that's the home screen. The next screen, and it shows you can create new. This is on any screen. It just, again, shortcuts if you want to make a new user, mailbox, auto attendant. You can't really make users as administrator. You need us to do that for you. So, because it is a billable event, so we have to do that. But so it doesn't mean just because it's there, it doesn't mean you can necessarily do that feature. Just so you know. And there's some other features in here that'll be presented that it's more of a display thing than anything. But in the voicemail tab, users can get into their UC client and see things, and they can actually go to the old version. This is the old version of doing things. That UC client screen that I showed you before here is what users have access to, and they can actually click down lower on the screen and get access to the old school way of doing things, and they can see their messages. But as the system administrator, you can see any user in here. This is a live operating system for us. This is our system at Unitel. So we got lots of extra things in here that maybe we're using for testing and whatnot, but this is our emergency mailbox that does have a message in there. I can listen to it, which I'm not going to go in and do, or I can delete the message there, but you can do that to any mailbox in the system. So as a system administrator, you do have access to that and all their different folders within the mailbox. Most people maybe don't even know about them or even use them, but you save a message, it goes into the old folder, but you can save them as work or custom ones or urgent messages if somebody leaves you an urgent message, for instance. So you do have access to all those things. I'm going to skip over services for now because that's the nuts and bolts and I want to spend time on that. Accounting. Under the accounting tab, you have access to your invoices, your orders. You can make payments if you want. You can click on an invoice here. Any blue is a hyperlink. You can download it as a PDF version. You can go ahead and view it. It gives you information about it, but you can get the whole invoice here and every page in detail and all your calls, and if you were charged per minute, how much you were charged. So extensive information in there. All right. And again, you can download it, view it, and that's the email that it will go to. All right. You can look at your orders here if you had any recent orders or if you've changed any orders. The one that is activated is the last order. You can click on it. Again, blue hyperlink. You can click and see the information inside there. All right. So we're not paying anything because it's our system, and we don't have to do that. But on yours, it will certainly have a billable amount there. And see any payments you've made and set up your payment profile, whether you're paying by credit card, check, what have you. Most people, I think, we require pay by credit card for the residual billing, but that's how you go into the accounting tab. The next one over is reports. So any call that comes into the system will show up under reporting. You can drill down and see by extension. You can do by date. I have my extension in here. I can get rid of that. And if I do a search now, and be careful of that because a lot of screens you can put information in here. If you ever see like you're not seeing what you expected to see, make sure that there's nothing in this field up here because it will save it many times or most times or all times. And I've been burned by that before where I'm like, where is this? And especially like extensions. I can only see this one extension or certain information and there might just be, one number up there. It's not going to change till you hit search on this screen, but I just wanted to point that out. And you can do by date, from and to date, all calls, just incoming, outgoing calls. Once you drill down, it will let you filter by phone number or an extension number. So you only want to see this one extension or, multiple extensions. I only want to see these certain extensions. You also have activity graphs that you can get to up here as well. It shows you if you're paying by call path, for instance, you can see how many calls at a given time. This is showing, total calls on incoming and outgoing on this date. So you have different, average call by hour. There's different things you can use in here. I don't know why you'd want to change by time zone. I don't think you'd ever want to change that. But so you have some information in there, some powerful information about who's calling, where, and you can export it, of course. All right, settings tab. I don't think there's much you'd need to do in here other than maybe it shows you your account. I would not change anything in here. If you want to change the emails and stuff, I would call us on that. You can change it, but I'd suggest that you call us on that. Let's see, the services tab. You can change your prepaid if you are using prepaid call paths. A lot of customers have a call path. What a call path is, it's a virtual line. Let me explain to you what that is. So on our account, we have 10 prepaid call paths. Depending on how it was originally set up, we have had some customers say, I only have 3 lines and I have 10 phones, but I don't use the phones that much. But I need at least be able to take at least 3 calls at once. Well, they would have 3 prepaid call paths here and would charge them, whatever, a certain figure for that, and maybe charge them, I don't know, $7.95 per phone or something like that, and they'd pay for the prepaid call pass. So they'd pay less per phone because they don't use them that often, and maybe they'd pay per minute. So there's lots of different flavors. But what we find most people do is they'll pay a package price. They'll get the phone user, a voicemail, a direct number dial for that user, and a call path. So if they have 30 phones, they'll have 30 call paths. Everybody can call out at the same time. Everybody can get an incoming call at the same time. But if you are one of those users that, say, has a limited amount of call paths, you can get an on-demand path, and you have to pay a little bit extra. I think it's like $5. You'd have to ask your account rep for the exact figure on that. But you'd pay a little bit more for a call path than a prepaid path. And once you use that, you can have up to 10 call on-demand paths. So once you say you have 3 prepaid call paths, you get a 4th call, whether it's outgoing or incoming. It doesn't matter how it gets into the system, but it's been used. you will be paid, say it's 35, you pay $30 for a prepaid call path. Well, you pay, say, 35. Don't quote me on those numbers, but that's just a guesstimate for that on-demand path. And once you use it once, you can continue to use it. That fourth call could come in, incoming or outgoing, doesn't matter, several times during that month. You're not going to pay for it every single time. Once you pay for it once, it's done. It's yours there for you to use. You're not going to be pay for it again. But if you have it set for more than one, two or more, and you do get to that first on demand and another call comes in and you use that second call path, you may never use that again for the rest of the month. But once you pay for it once, you pay for it for that whole month. So if you have that set to 10 and you have some kind of, I don't know, influx of calls and you're only paid for 3 and you get 13 calls at once, guess what? And if at 35 times 10, that's an extra $350 on your bill. So be careful with it and make sure you know how much it's going to cost before you go ahead and add that in. But that is something you can certainly do. I would not change anything else in here unless you are talking to us, because it will have effects on other things that you may not be aware of. And it's, this is just basic training for simple admin. I just wanted to show it to you to let you know that it exists and you do have access to it and that maybe you shouldn't mess with it. International dialing is off by default. We do have some customers that say, I don't want to dial a PIN. And for that, we have to set up a private network behind the scenes for that. But if you do international dialing and use a PIN, you can generate a new PIN. Do not do it unless you know what you're doing, because as soon as you generate it, it changes the number, and then whoever had that other number will no longer work. And you can take that PIN. If you do decide to use a PIN to dial out, then you have to know the PIN. So not just anybody can dial out to the phone. So it's for security, and that's why we have to lock down your the phones will only work on your network when we lock it down. When you don't enter the PIN. And the downside to that is you can't take your phone and just simply take it home without calling us and having us change and allowing it to work off another network. So it's for security, so you don't get bombarded by hackers. So you can say once you enter the PIN from your phone, when it asks you and you make that international call, how long do you want to remember? Do you want to enter it for every single time you use it? Do you want to say, hey, if I enter the PIN, I'm going to make my international calls. I may do a few within 15 minutes or an hour. So it's how long it remembers it for before you have to enter it again. And then down here is you can say, anything outside of these times, it is not going to, it's going to be disabled as it shows here. So if you want to manipulate that, you certainly can. And the only other thing I think you would mess with, and I'm leaving, I'm not saving my changes purposely. Yeah, don't forget, by the way, top and bottom of the screen is the save button. Anytime you make changes, save them and give it up to 5 minutes for the change to take effect. Depending on what it is, it could take that long. Some go very, very quickly, but many, once you save it, if you try to test it immediately afterwards, it probably will not work. It takes at least a minute or two for many of these changes to take effect. Just be aware of that. But if you do have a user, this is me here. I'll open myself up. This is a different user I use for logging into the mobile app and whatnot. So, this is my extension at Unitel 647. So when I log into my mobile app, this is my mobile app. So if you have someone that that you need to disable their account, you can just go in here and set no, and then that account will be disabled. Or you can simply change their password and username in here. So this is used to log into the UC client, which was that other screen that logs into up here. If I click on here, it will log into my UC client. Let me just end it here. So that's a UC client. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but anyone who is a user under that users tab, we don't automatically do this for everyone, but you can have access to here. And today, with everybody working from home, you can actually dial any number from here, and your computer turns into a soft phone. You can get a USB headset or some sort of headset on your laptop, or just use your multimedia microphone and speakers and make calls right on the system here. You don't need a phone. You can work from home right from here. You can see your voicemail, but there is a whole nother video on its use, so I'm not going to get into that. I'm just showing you that you do have access to that, and that's what the landing screen, that's what that stands for. We're landing on the account manager. That's the account manager screen that we're in dealing with today, which is where we want to be. But all I'm showing you here is that if you do have a user, you can change their passcode if they do leave. You definitely want to do that, because if they have access to the mobile app, if they know about it and have access to it, or the UC client, well, they're dialing out on your system. If they can get to this from anywhere that they have access to the internet in Chrome. So just be aware of that. I would not advise you or instruct you to change anything else in here. All right. If you do, give us a call. We'll tell you how to do it. So that's about it. I just want to, the only purpose of that was to show you these tabs, because you do have access to it. Maybe there might be something you want to change there under settings. So that's the only reason we give you access to it. But the nuts and bolts of the system are here in the Services tab. So on that main home screen, it brought you, it said phone numbers and extensions, and I think invoices or make a payment, which took you to the accounting tab. So under phone numbers, this is where it takes you. So you can pick any number here. We have lots and lots of numbers. Some go directly to extensions. Some are just for testing or whatever. We've got tons and tons of toll-free numbers over the years and local numbers that were published for different things. So we have lots and lots of numbers of the system. But they all behave the same once you get into it. So at the top of the screen, the only time the state would come into play is if it was a toll-free number. So there's really nothing you need or should change there. The outgoing caller ID, if you want to change it per number, it will update, and it does have to propagate the network outside, the whole telecom network. So that could take up to 48 hours, I believe they say. Internal presentation is good if you have multiple sites. I use this for, the Worcester, Boston, Providence site, whatever it may be. Put this in here, and that way if you get a call from, say, the Worcester site and transfer it to the Boston site, well, the Providence site will show up in the screen saying the Worcester site, it came from the Worcester site. We'll follow that through the caller ID throughout the system. The call routing, here it's just, this number is just going to an extension. If it's a holiday, there is holidays in the system. Whenever it finds a match, it will route it wherever it's shown here. So usually if it's a direct number, they'd be the same, but maybe on one of our main numbers, it would say the auto attendant, and probably have a holiday. Yeah, we do have a holiday attendant here. We'll play a holiday greeting. So this, this wasn't a main number. Maybe I could have picked a better number to show you, but if it was a main number, it would go to something. Well, you have all these options for routing. Many times it might be an outside number. A customer calls us, and let's assume this is the main number of your company. Maybe you want to put it to someone's cell phone number. You can just put in the 10-digit number here. I'm just, using information just for purposes of demonstration. But you can put in any outside number. It would route the call there. There's other ways of doing it, whether if it's a direct call to your extension, I would do it differently, and I will show you that in a minute. And the users, if they have access to the UC client, they can do it on themselves. A lot of people choose not to do that. I'm not sure why, but I guess they just don't want their employees changing how their number rings on the fly. But they do have access to it, or you can do it as a system administrator. But you have all these options here. Many of them you're not going to use. One, for instance, I think it gives you a SIP trunk, up here as an option. A customer would never, ever use that unless they really knew what they were doing. So you're going to call us for that. Caller ID routing has to be set up. So you can route a call based on the caller ID coming in. It would have to be the exact same caller ID every single time that person called you. So that's a little touchy, but maybe somebody calls you from a cell phone, and I did set it up on our system for someone here whose daughter called, and they wanted to treat it different. So that's an example of that. That's the only time I've set it up and used it. It was really for testing to see how it worked. So it is there. I would call us if you want to do that, and we'll instruct you if you think you have a use for that feature. So basically, we're going to route this number different based on the number incoming. That's all that means. An extension is any extension on the system. We'll give you a drop down of all the extensions on the system that you could route to. Phone, the phone, it's almost the same as an extension. That's really more if you select, I want to go to my phone from your own thing, but you can specify the ring time here in here. But I would, if I was running by a number, I would go to extension every time. You can route directly to someone's mailbox, any mailbox in the system you can select. There could be, a service mailbox, any mailbox, tons of them on the system that you can select. You can route to an auto attendant, any auto attendant in the system. So a lot of times it's, after hours or, main and after hours, day or night reading or whatever you have. You can route to a time frame. A time frame is anything that involves date and time. I'm going to show you time frames in a minute, so that's all I'm going to say about that for now. But if you need to route by date and time, use the time frame, and you'll see how that works. A group is just a group of phones. You'd have to select that under a ring group. So we have incoming sales and service, things like that we route to. Conference hub, I'm going to skip over. There is conferencing in the system, and you'd have like an 800 number going to a conference hub, which they could dial a conference bridge if you do use that, and it is a billable event. So ask your representative about that if you are interested in it. DISA, I'm going to skip over that. Nobody uses it. Direct Inward System Access is what it stands for. Basically, if I want to have a number, so I can call this number and dial out through it. There's so many better ways of doing it now. I don't even know why it's there, to be honest with you. A queue is an ACD queue. I'm not going to get into that. It's far beyond this. The outside number we talked about. And anything else you would not use. So I'm just going to leave it at that. And you'll get explanations as we're going through about the different groups and things like that as we go along here. Now we're just on this. Keep in mind now we're only dealing with this one phone number right here. This pertains to any number. You can make all these changes. They're all the same. You're just going to pick the number you want to make changes to. So you can download music on hold, and that's coming up. So depending on what you downloaded, you can select it there. The screen for privacy, I would not use that. It's either on or off. I have not used it, I'll be honest with you, and it's going to screen per number. So they'd have to enter their number and pre-record it, and then I guess after you answer the phone, it will say, so-and-so is calling you. Do you want to accept this call? Press 1, because that's how it works per extension. I would never do it per line. I can't see a scenario where that would make sense. I'm sure there is one, or they wouldn't have it in there, but I haven't come across it yet, and I would do it differently regardless. So. But I just like to touch base on it because it is there. And again, if I don't touch base on it, there is a help screen here. Don't forget about that, please. So standard, we're under phone numbers, standard and toll-free get handled the same. The next thing down is extensions, and I did minimize that. You can move these things around any way you want. I don't know if I showed you that yet or not, but I didn't move it that time, but I can move it. Extensions. So I'm going to leave this screen here. That's probably why I didn't let me move it, because I was waiting to do something else. So we have standard and cloud extensions. Real easy explanation. A standard extension has an endpoint, a physical device. That's what we call the phones, endpoints. They could be, it's a voice over IP term, just saying anything that's connected to our service, but basically endpoint is a phone. A cloud extension is something without an endpoint. So here we're using, if somebody presses 0 on our system, 0 goes nowhere unless it's through an automated attendant, or if you're dialing from a phone, it goes nowhere unless you specify it here. So when we press 0, we go to a group that is called the operator group and dials a group of phones. So I'm going to get into groups in a minute, so I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I just wanted to point that out. So another thing we might use cloud extensions for is if we don't have an extra extension in the system, or we don't want to tie it to a user on the system, like the administrator would probably tie to a cloud extension and just call it administrator. We use them for different things, but essentially it's to be able to route through the system through a user that doesn't have a phone. So let me go to standard extensions here. And bear with me for 1 second here. All right, so here's the extensions. And the extension screen will show you, first of all, we're only looking at 10 of 23. You could see all of them, go to the next page. Here allows you to see how many you want to see at any one time. We can see all of them, the different columns you want to see here. I just select, show all, so you can see all your extensions on the system at once. But here shows you whether they're logged into the UC client or not. Is that showing up as red because they are not logged in? That green shows you that the phone or the endpoint is live. And then this green one shows you that the user is logged into their mobile app. So I'm going to go ahead and select the user. It doesn't really matter who, but I'm going to go ahead and select myself. So my app is not up right now, and I'm not in UC client. I use the app a lot, but I don't use the UC client at all. Very, very seldom. I'm just in and out of the office a lot, so I don't use it, and we don't use it much in here, but it's just our preference. We have different ways of talking to each other, but some people love it, and you can do it through video and things too. Video between users. I highly suggest you go and watch the Cloud PBX UC client, especially if you're working from home. It's a great app. You can see up to 4 people at the same time. I'll leave it at that. It's really awesome. I highly suggest you look into it and use it. And if you can't get into it, you need a user and access, certainly call us. Service at askunitel.com is an email, or 800-843-1039 is a direct number to our service department. All right, moving forward, the extension number, do not change that. You can, but do not. Block caller ID on all outbound calls, so you cannot send out any caller ID outgoing if you want. Or you can select a caller ID that you want to send out per user. So here, I send out my DID. So if customers see me call, they call me back directly. But some customers say, I don't like that. Send out our main number. You have your choice. If you have if you have multiple locations, what's your location? Make sure you're doing that right, because you would absolutely not want someone to go to the wrong location if you dial 911. So how many seconds to ring is how long does it ring this phone before it goes to the next step, such as voicemail. It also has one down here, so if you select that phone thing, I could go by extension, but that ring time on the phone disappears, and that's when that one up here takes over. But if you have it down here, it's going to go by the ring timer down here. All right. So the different options you have. You're seeing that it's registered, same green thing that you saw at the main screen, just showing you on the individual level here that is registered. Green is good, red is bad. So in the routing and configuration, you have a few tabs here. The call routing tab, we're just dealing with my extension here. I could set forward on always to an outside number. SIP trunk, you'll never use another extension or my mailbox. So most of the time, I guess you'd forward to an outside number. So you can put a number in there. In the UC client, you can do it from there as well. But as a system administrator, you certainly have control of this. Or more importantly, you could troubleshoot it, saying the person's saying, all my calls are going directly to voicemail, and my do not disturb key is not on my phone. Well, this does not tie in directly to the phone. It ties into the UC client, but not on the button on the phone. So the person could have put this on, and they're not getting any calls. And do not disturb will go off of your if busy. So and that's the other thing why some customers, I guess, don't want people in here, because they look and they see that, well, do you mean they could, put if busy to our conference? Well, yeah, they could. Why they would, I'm not sure. Maybe they shouldn't. If they're doing things like that, then yeah, maybe you should deny access to them. But I think most people don't change things that they don't know what they're doing. But that's your call, not mine. So yeah, most of the time you shouldn't have to change anything in here, other than maybe a Find Me feature. And I go over extensively the Find Me feature in the UC client. I suggest you go in there. but basically Find Me, you can configure it to ring the person's phone and their cell phone at the same time. The only problem with that is Find Me and the UC client, the Core Nexer client, or the UC client, works in tandem with your phone. So if you were to go ahead and put this on, they're basically fighting against each other at that point. So you got to use one or the other. And I do get into that and make that point on the UC client. But just to show you quickly here, you could have it sequentially and it goes in order. And then when it goes in order, you have to accept the call by pressing one on your phone. Here you don't. It's going to ring both extensions at the same time. Whoever picks it up wins. Basically, it's going to ring for 20 seconds. You could have them screen the calls here instead of on the phone number. Give the user, that's if you're going in order sequentially. In between each one of these, they'll be given the option to go to your voicemail in between those. But otherwise, it's done for 20 seconds. And if it doesn't get answered, where does it go? Is it always active, or is it only active during these hours and exclude Saturdays and Sundays? And actually, on mine, if I turn that on, that's how I want to have it used, because we do have an emergency box. So, and I think depending on the person, sales, they're 24/7, but maybe service people or, I don't know, other, not essential people maybe don't want to take calls after hours. So, and I don't use Find Me anyhow. I use the app when I do use that. So just to show you, let me get back into my user. So you can do it from any hyperlink here. It would work from here as well to edit. They do the same thing. And those hyperlinks to the right there, by the way, it says phone. It will take you to the phone, not here. And look, so I had made those changes. They saved. I didn't want to do that. So be wary of that as well. Here, try first. I want to go to my phone. All right. If I'm busy, I want to go to my mailbox. So put things back the way they were. So you can change these things. But one thing I wanted to point out, and when I started talking about the lines, and if you want to route your main number to somebody's cell phone or something, well, what about direct calls? Well, I would let the direct calls ring the way they do. And if you're down, or if you want to change it so all your calls, you could forward all your calls here, use the mobile app. Or if you don't like the mobile app, or don't think you'll use it that much, or just prefer to have your calls go to your cell phone, but they'll ring your cell phone if you forward them all, and they'll go to your cell phone voicemail. So if you use the app, you're only checking one business voicemail, and your caller ID will be not from your cell phone, but by the app. So just bear that in mind. But some people say, well, I don't know my phone. I could lose internet and not be in the office and not even know it, but I want to get my calls. Well, in that case, go here, and if your phone's offline, go to an outside number, put in your cell phone number, and anytime your phone goes offline for this user specifically, will go to that number. So that's the way to get around that. We do not have ours set up with no PIN. We're not, we don't use international that often anyhow, but you can enable or disable it per user. Domestic rules, whether they can only dial 7, 10, or 11 digits, whether they, general dialing rules, whether they can enter any feature codes, like, to call pickup as *8 in the extension, for instance. If you disable that, they won't be able to do that. Or whether they use account codes, I wouldn't get into that. I'm not going to get into that now. It's beyond this. Or whether they can dial any internal extensions. Again, I would leave all that alone if I were you. And on this user, what voicemail box is it? I don't think there's any need for a customer to change that, but you could say if it goes unanswered, use this voicemail box, and this user will forward to that voicemail box and be tied to that voicemail box if they press their voicemail key. All right. The other tabs here, networks, I would not change anything. It says you can connect to any network. If you did have different networks, I believe you could change it, like users working from home. But really, give us a call. We'll do it. We do it all day long. This is basically for about, changing users' passwords and names and things like that. But I just like to show you what's here because you do have access to it again. So the Find Me, we talked about that. Under Advanced, don't change anything in here. Okay? Did I say that clear enough? Don't change anything in here. I'm going to leave it at that. All right, next thing down is mailboxes. I'll leave the screen because I don't want to save any changes I made. I'll go back in afterwards and look at it. Cloud extensions, you shouldn't have to change anything there. I purposely bypassed that, went over it because I told you why we use cloud extensions, and I don't see any reason a customer would have to change anything in there. Call us if you think you do, and we'll walk you through it. So the mailboxes, and let me back up a little bit. There's three things really that make up an extension on the system. There's the extension itself, which we just saw, the mailbox is tied to, and the endpoint that it's tied to. You shouldn't have to change anything in endpoints ever. Mailboxes, the only reason you want to change anything in here in extensions is probably the name. And if you go through the directory, this name here is for the directory. On the extensions, that's the name when you call between phones. So they both have to be changed. You can change this number. I wouldn't. I have done it in the past and been able to change it and have messages saved. I've done it and have it not saved. So I guess it depends on where we are in the grand scheme of things. It gets updated all the time. That's one of the benefits of a cloud system, is it constantly gets upgraded and you don't have to pay for it, or you're paying for it within your monthly revenue invoice, excuse me. So you're always paying for the best technology that you can get. It's always getting updated, just like phone apps and everything else. So the old days, you'd have a phone system for 5 years. You'd basically do a forklift upgrade to get the next greatest thing a lot of times, or you'd get, you'd have to pay for different software upgrades all the time. And you get to a certain point where, well, this system doesn't upgrade anymore. You got to rip and replace. Well, those days are gone with this. So those are some of the benefits you're getting here. All right, so you can change the password if you have a user leave, and you don't have to get rid of this mailbox. You can update the name and password. Any old messages will be retained in there. You could play the messages. You can click record here, and it'll ask you, or ring your extension. So I'm going to shut that off because we're in extension. Actually, it shows you somewhere else where it dials extension 217. Oh, because we're logged in as extension 217. I have tied into the account administrator. So whatever extension is tied to that, so that may not work for you. But you can select a file, upload a file. This is more for if a user logged in and they wanted to record their message, it would call their phone. They could do it that way. There's other ways of doing it. But if you had... We have some customers that have all their messages professionally done, all users, everybody. So if you do that, but certainly your auto attendant greetings, if you have them professionally done, we do it the same way. So there's a lot of repetitive stuff in here, and maybe the users doesn't get used as much, if at all, but it is there. So this one, notifications, you get enabled voice to text. It's not on here, but a lot of users will have an email in there that they'd send to, and whether you want to attach a WAV file to that. This account does not have transcripts to email, so you can have it, and it is a billable thing, again, to talk to your account administrator to get the pricing on it. But you could be sent an email of your voicemail with a WAV attachment of the actual message that you can save and send to anybody your heart desires. That you can send a WAV file to via email or whatever, wherever you can send an attachment with a WAV file. It's yours to do with as you please. But if you do get the email and this is on and you're paid for it, you also have the transcript in there as well. Some people love that. But it does work quite well. I mean, it's only as good as the person talking, but and the engine doing it. But the engine's really good. Depending on the words, it's not perfect, and it's getting there. It gets better every day, but we're as good as anybody else, put it that way. So you have some different mailbox options. While you're doing the announcement, you want to allow people to dial through it. I would not mess with any of this stuff. Announcement only. These are mailboxes that would use like an automated attendant to say directions. For directions, press 2, and would play an announcement only. And there's other things we use it for, but I would say call us if you're going to do anything other than just changing the name and doing those few things. You can hide this person from the directory just by clicking here. You don't have to get rid of their name. You can leave the name of this so you know who it's used for and just click on that. Deleting the name would work too, but I'm not sure if it would actually allow you to save that. You might have to put in like a bunch of Z's or something. I saw one of our users had Z's in there, and they probably did it for that reason. You can delete the voicemail. It will be deleted after 180 days regardless. It does not save it forever. We have people that do it, say, don't delete it, or I just want to email to me. I don't want any message lights on my phones. We got a few customers that do that, actually. We have other ones that, general delivery message that they say, if they haven't checked within a week, forget it. We haven't gotten back to them by a week or, 2 weeks, 30 days, whatever. Just delete it because, I don't want the light on my phone. If we haven't gotten back to them by then, chances are they've already called somebody else or been taken care of, things like that. And you shouldn't have to change the time zone. But that's about in there for the mailbox. Again, a lot of this is going to be passwords and usernames that you're going to change, but I'd just like to show you. You do have a broadcast mailbox. I don't know too many people who use these anymore because there's so many other ways of getting in touch with people, texting and email and everything. But when voicemail first came out, you'd want to broadcast a message to multiple people. So that's all that is. You can go in and click New Broadcast. You're going to have to make a number for the mailboxes that does not conflict with any other numbers in the system. Take note that you cannot use 211 through 911 because they are used for other things. And 111 is available, but that gets used for extensions a lot of times. So in any case, you make the an extension number for it, mailbox name and password, and who wants to get the messages. So that way, anytime you leave a message for mailbox, whatever it is here, I believe you can just dial that, or you can dial the mailbox number star, and it will broadcast the message to all those users. All right, 911 locations. You don't have to do anything in here. Please don't do anything in here. Please don't change anything in here. Because we will be able to see, by the way, anytime you make changes, I don't know if it's going to show you here. I don't think it will. No. Oh, no, right here. And maybe you don't have access to it, but I can hit that, or we can hit it from here and see who has been logged in and who was the last one to make changes. So should you make a change in here that is detrimental, we can see that you were the last one in there. I just want to let you know that for because you can shut off 911 for these people, and that it will have a detrimental effect. But you can only do it and agree to these conditions. So we see you're the last one to do it. Well, you agreed to the conditions to do it, so we set it up. We knew it was working right. I don't mean to sound threatening. It's more be careful. And I'm not trying to be threatening. I'm just saying be careful. But we can see that you did it. So if you say, hey, I never did that, I'm just giving you a disclaimer. Well, we can see it. So yes, you did. All right. And the last thing I want to talk about, as far as I told you, you have the extension, the mailbox, the endpoint. Here's the endpoints. Let me go to my phone here. It tells you the manufacturer, the model, and the MAC address. There's really no reason you'd have to get in here, except for if you're going to change keys in a phone, if you want to do that for the user. The user can have access to their keys and change them if they want, and this will not override what they have changed. But basically, you have a few things you can put on here. An extension BLF. BLF stands for Busy Lamp Field, and you probably, depending on the customer, and the size of the customer, if we can fit all the users on the phone, we will. And what that is a busy lamp field. The caller is on the phone. It will light up red showing you that they're on the phone, or will extinguish when they're off the phone. You can press the button. It will dial them. You can transfer calls using that key. That's all in the user end training. I'm not going to get into that. But you can manipulate these phones. You can change it to a different extension and change the name here. Now, again, if you do have these keys in your phones and you have somebody that left, you also have to go into these phones and change these keys in the phones. It does not, you have to go into every phone and do it. Now, there is an import-export that can do that. I don't think it's a good idea for the customer to do that. I'm not sure if you even have access. So if you have a large site, you're going to change a bunch of phones at the same time, call us. Let us do it. Because if you do it wrong and it wipes out all the keys in your phones, you'll be a very unhappy customer and you'll be calling us anyhow. Again, not to scare you, I'm just trying to tell you what I've seen. So, but you can change them. So if you want to go through every phone, it's not a big one, please. By all means, you want to do it, please do it. Even if you mess it up, we can help you fix it. Parking BLF is park keys in the phones. You'd have to know what park keys you're using, and you want them the same for all the phones. So you will see them on the phones. Here, I'm only using 2 on this particular phone. I forget. Oh, that's my phone. I think we have 4 for most everybody else. Not sure why I only put 2 on my phone, but that's what I got. Again, I can manipulate it all I want, so I play with it all the time. It could just be that I was playing with something, and I'd never put it back. But some of the other options you have, you can just blank it out, which they just came out with recently, which is nice because if you have a phone and you normally have 2 call path keys or extension keys at the top left of the phone, and you might have 3 park keys, and on my particular phone, that lines up, looks nice and pretty and everything. But on some phones, you might have a couple extra keys and you only want to use 3 park keys, but then you want to make it look real pretty and just have your BLF keys on the right-hand side. Well, now you can blank out that last key on the phone and make it look pretty. They now have speed dials. That's a new feature. I have not tested it yet, but you can certainly make it a speed dial. Enter the number you want to dial, and then put in a name for it, save it. One thing you will have to do is reboot your phone anytime you make these changes. All right. Down here, you have access. I am really surprised you have access to this, to be honest with you. I'm guessing that you can't make changes and save this, but we might. I believe what had to happen is, in order for you to get access to these keys, we had to give you access to the config file for the phone. But let me tell you something. If you do see this and you do have access to this and change anything into this, and normally you would just see, let me see here, restore to default. I'm going to go ahead and restore because I can do whatever I want to my phone and change it. So normally it would look like this. If it has the other screen, it means we're using it for something to manipulate the phone and make changes to that one phone that we didn't do to all your phones, or our Unitel template that we use stock for all phones unless we have to do something for your particular site. So if you do have access to this edit thing, a rule of thumb is, if you don't know what you're dealing with, don't touch it. And you can always close out or hit exit, and it says, do you want to save these changes? Say no, or just hit this X and get the heck out of it. All those things will get you out of a bind if you're in too deep and don't know where you are. But this, certainly you can, if you have the extra keys on here, you can add more keys by hitting the plus sign down here. And if you want to add more BLFs or whatever, intercom, this will, actually, that's a great feature. And again, this recently came out, so if I sound surprised, that's why. But now if you put an extension, and let's see, we're using Kodi Intercom. The way the intercom feature works is if you just dial the BLF, it'll call that extension. But if you use the intercom, it's going to come over this speaker and intercom them. Now, I haven't tested this, but the way I'm hoping it works, because some people said, well, I don't want it to ring. I just want it to intercom all the time. So I'm thinking other people have probably requested that, because I've gotten quite a good number of customers that asked for that. And I said, no, it's one or the other. So maybe this is just the intercom key that dials that person, and it's not the same as the BLF key, which allows you to transfer calls to them. I don't think so, and hopefully it lights up if they're on their phone and acts as a BLF key. I got to test it, but I'm pretty sure that's what that's for. But those, just so you know, those are the different options they have for you. And I don't know if the help has been updated on that yet. I'll go back and look at it and see if they have updated that. But those are the different things you can do. It used to be just extension, park, and extension BLF and parking BLF, and those were all you had. They just added these other 3 very, very, very recently. So I haven't had a chance to mess with them, so I'm going to kind of breeze over them a little bit, just so you know, but I did want to touch base to it. So that's the endpoint screen. So You know, you want to mess with the endpoint, the phone itself, change keys, anything, you go into the endpoints. You need to change the directory or their mailbox password, you go in the mailbox. If you need to change the name or how the extension is routed, you go to an extension. So those three things affect how an extension works. Just know that. The auto attendant, you do have access to. If you are confident in it and want to change it, by all means. You want to add one, by all means. You could make a new one and say, you know, press option 3 for, you know, service options, and then go to a service auto attendant, things like that, whatever, you know, just sub auto attendants. If you want to do that, so you'd go here and you could select, you know, another auto attendant and have like a sub auto attendant here. But essentially what this is, it gives you your auto attendant. It gives the name, the auto attendant timeout. So after a person sits there, it does absolutely nothing. What happens? And there's a timeout down below. The digit timeout is just after you press a digit, how long does it wait to say I'm done? Oh, not I'm done. The person calling in is done dialing those. The announcement, you can record via phone, and you'll dial, in this case, *321. Depends on the auto attendant. They're all different. If I want to record from a phone, you can upload a file, which is what we do, and you select the file, and we have a professional recording done. The default recording is what it defaults to, and it just says, hey, you know, your party's extension, dial it. Doesn't say anything about your company, so you wouldn't want to use that. Or you could go buy a mailbox. That was the old way of doing it, and sometimes a good way of doing it, and we'll do it that way. If you need to call it from the outside, from like a cell phone or from anywhere in the world, and call in, and you need to just log into a mailbox and update the greeting in that mailbox to play as your announcement. So sometimes we still do that if you don't have this kind of access. That's the only way you can do it from an outside number that isn't tied to the system. So, and there is a virtual auto attendant that you can manipulate your greetings. If you do it all the time, we would certainly present that to you and talk to you about that. All right, so other than that, what happens if you press 0? Where does it go? We go to an operator group. If you press 1 for service, we go to our incoming group for service, which I'm going to show you groups in a minute. Button 2 and 3, I don't know why we have them both for company directory, but we're just messing around in there. By default, it's star for the company directory, pound to check your voicemail, to instruct the user to enter their mailbox number to check their messages. In that timeout, what happens if the caller does nothing? Well, we route it to the incoming service group. So you do have access to all those things in the auto attendant and can manipulate them. All right. So time frame, and when I first got started here, we talked about time frames. I think we saw one of the numbers maybe routed to a time frame, or maybe I didn't do that. I've done a couple of these now, trying to get going here. So the different time frames, but when I did the extensions, one of the options was to route to a time frame. So I'm just going to go to Unitel Business Hours here to show you. And there's other things in there, and it may just been for testing, but we do use this one. So any call that we route to this time frame, we'll say we can go to a phone number. I'm sure we have one that routes to this time frame. I can go back and show you. But when it routes here, we just follow the breadcrumbs. You go from the number, and actually, let me just show you, because this is I tell all the technicians, and I instruct customers when I train on this. If I do, you know, on-site training, sometimes we do that, and this is all I do for the on-site training. So here we go. So this one is routed to this phone number 580-2500 is routed to time frame service. If I click here, I go to the phone number. If I click here for edit or view, I'm going to go to that. But if I click over here or any of these extensions, they're going to take me to the extension. So I'm just going to click here. I'm going to go right to the time frame. It's going to bring me over here and take me to the Unitel service time frame. Might take a little bit longer as it navigates those couple of things to get there. But it will get there eventually. Plus, I'm on my wireless at work, so it's a little bit slower. I usually plug in for that reason, but I didn't today. All right, so here we are in the time frame. As we saw, it was called Unitel Service. So during hours forward to call to, so we're just going to go to a group called Incoming Call for Service. I can show you the group in a minute. Excuse me. But it's going to be active during these days. Can make it all day if I wanted to, or during these times. So those are our business hours. On Saturdays and Sundays, we are closed. We do have emergency service, but so outside of those hours, it goes to our auto attendant after hours. So it doesn't matter what you're routing. You can set these up, these drop downs, same drop downs, same selection here. All these drop downs are the same. Once you select group, it gives you all the groups in the system. So you'll see they give you all the same options. Doesn't mean you're going to be able to use them or would want to use them. It's just how the system is designed. Just be aware of it. So you get a lot of options, but again, if you need to route from time, use a time frame and come in here. And then you can do all sorts of different things. And if it goes between, we have some customers that go after midnight, and they're open till 3 in the morning. Transportation places, things like that. There are definitely ways to do that. Get our help for that because it gets a little bit funkier, for lack of a better term. But we can do it, and there are ways around it. Once I set it all up and show customers, I'll do a one-on-one for those kind of things and show them how it works, and they're fine. And once they understand it, it's very easy to do and understand. But not something I want to talk about today. Caller ID routing, I'm going to skip over that. If you want to do it, please contact us. That's all I'm going to say about that. So the ring groups are one of the things that comes up to route to. Super, super easy. I'll just go into that, and it shows you how many people are in the ring group and how it works. So a ring group, you can do, it's kind of like a call center, I guess, in the sense that you could go sequentially and just go down this list of people. But 9 times out of 10, the way we do it, we simultaneously ring all these people at the same time. We like to limit how many people ring just because it puts a lot of, not a lot, but it puts strain on your network, and just a lot of information has to go out to ring all these phones at once. So depending on the internet connection, if it's a slow one, we might advise you that maybe you don't want to have that many people call. And there's other things we can do. But in any case, don't worry about that unless we tell you you have to worry about it. So this one we call service. It's going to ring for 30 seconds till after ringing this group. Caller ID settings, we can say the original caller ID, only custom text, or both, or none. So what we have is the incoming caller ID from the caller is going to show up on our phones, as well as it's going to say service call, so we know how to deal with it and how to answer it. Or just the fact that it's coming in for service or sales or whatever. Because some of these people overlap and may answer a service or a sales call. That's the benefit to that, I guess. After it rings here, after 30 seconds, it goes unanswered. It will go into a service mailbox. So again, all these same options. We could go to another group. And we do that with people. We ring this group for 10 seconds and then go to another group for 20 seconds or whatever, and then end up in a voicemail. So you can go from group to group. You can go from group to user. I mean, whatever you can come up with. You can route it that way. It should work. And again, you want to add. I'm sorry, I didn't show you that. Easy. Just click it, add it. Want to remove, click on it, remove it. You can click here and hit shift and highlight multiples and remove them all at the same time, all those kind of things. So. Basically, what kind of works with other things, spreadsheets or whatnot, will work here. All right, so holidays. I'm just going to leave. I don't want to save anything. And so holidays, it does not go by year yet. I am hoping they change that eventually. I think they will. So we could make a bunch of years and dates ahead of time. Otherwise, you got to update them every year. Not a huge deal, really. Only certain dates change. This not being one of them. This would be called New Year's. I could have named it a new holiday. I mean, just defaults to New Year's. But it's that simple. Pick a date and save it. And that's it. And if you remember on the lines, the phone numbers, it said, if holiday, what do I do? That's the only thing that's affected by that is the phone number. And it could be a direct number, any number in the system, but that's what it looks at. It says, let me check the holidays. Is there a match? If there's a match, what do I do? And sometimes people will close early, and they'll say, well, what do I do? Well, we just want to have it go to the after hours thing. And you're closing early? Yeah. I tell them, make a holiday. All right. And they do it at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, no. Do it as soon as you're ready to close. give it 5 minutes and check it. So do it 5 minutes before you're going to close, and then that'll take over. And after that date's done, you don't have to worry about it. You can come back and delete it. And you definitely want to delete it before the following year. Otherwise, it's going to be on there again. So just be, that's the way I usually tell people to do that. The hold music is just that. There are some limitations to it. So here's our tracks. You can make a new group. Once you make the group, you can add a track. Here's our group. I can add a track here, but we go ahead and click on new group. And then you'll have to go into the lines and specify that you wanted to use this, by the way. Otherwise, it's just going to use whatever it was already programmed to do. So if you have a whole bunch of numbers, there is a way of doing it in multiple numbers. I think you have access to that. I'm not sure. But if you don't and it looks like you're going to have to touch every number, call us. We'll do it for you. We don't charge extra for that stuff. So you name the group, whatever you want to call it. Do you want to use it for outbound calling? Do you want to use the default or whatever's already in there? And there could be one in here already, and you want to override it with this one. You may have done this and said, yes, I want to use that for my outgoing. I want to use this for a different one. So you can have different for outgoing and incoming if you want, by line. Whether it plays the tracks sequentially at random, you don't have to have multiple tracks. But if you go in the help and look it up, it tells you can only have 10 megabytes. And you have to use, I believe, only WAV or MP3, and you can't go past 60 megabytes out of all the tracks all together. So I always tell people don't use WAV files. They take up a ton of space. Use MP3s. And if you found a track you like, you can use Audacity. It's a free software you can download to manipulate the tracks. Or a lot of times the customer will ask me, do you mind doing it? I do it all the time. We do it all the time. Send it to us. We will take care of it for you. And we do not charge extra for it. But you have to find your music. We can give you links to the music. It's got to be music you bought and paid for, or Beethoven, or this. You can go on YouTube, free music. There's a lot of free music out there. A lot of the old Beethoven stuff. Classical music, it does not have any rights on it. So that's other stuff you can choose. So. Well, you can do it yourself, and that's all on you. Again, whatever you change, we can see. So, call blocking. This is done per number, exact number. So if you are having people call you and it's a nuisance number, apparently we have some here. I don't want to get into it, but we could block outbound and play a message saying you're not allowed to block that number. That's all call blocking does. And I think I got through all of it. Let me just go through. We touched base on that. I skipped over that because I said call us. So we touched base on everything else. You can minimize these. You should be able to move them around. Oh, you can't move them. Good. It's kind of nice, actually. I'd rather you didn't have the option to move them. It does not look like you have that ability. So that's everything in the system. Again, usernames and passwords is the lion's share of what you change. But you do have options to all that. If you have any questions anytime, please call us. We will help walk you through anything you need. But we wanted to present a video for you guys. So anybody that wants to look at it on their own time and know how to do all these things, please look at the video first. If you still have questions, call us afterwards, and we can set up a remote session with you and help you any way you would like. Or we can do all this for you at no additional charge, as long as you're not completely redesigning the system or something. Yes, that we may charge you for, but these little changes here or there, somebody leaves, update the name, we do all that for you. So you don't have to take this on unless you want it. I just want to make sure you realize that. We're always here for you. But thank you very much. You can always go to askunitel.com for any other additional information. Thank you, and have a great day.